Yes, my name is Caylei Vogelzang, and I am very interested in healing the minds and bodies of those touched by cancer. I launched the publication in 2018 in an effort to provide resources to the cancer community and support as well. The publication, as you mentioned, does cover an array of topics, including travel, fashion, nutrition, mindfulness practices, clean beauty, etc. And we oftentimes refer to these as complementary practices or modalities. And we see them as sort of complementary to a classic cancer treatment because they're both, well, physical and spiritual side effects that come with the cancer journey. And so we need to, and the proximity to one's own mortality, quite frankly. And we want to figure out what we can what we can bring to the table to offset that and bring balance. Fortunately, the modalities that we cover are not limited to the cancer affected population, but really affect all of us. And I think there are lessons that I've learned personally from so many of the people who we featured in the publication about what's working, what are people doing. And I think that these lessons can be really incorporated into a greater wellness model for all of us. For those of you who don't know me, I have a bit of an interesting background. I grew up in a very unconventional way. I was raised on an organic herb farm in rural Southern Oregon. I grew up in a yurt, which is a Mongolian tent. And my family and I would raise fresh herbs and vegetables and go and sell them at the local farmers market in town. And I feel like this upbringing has taught me a lot about respecting the earth, and that very, very farm to table. We would literally be sent out to pick the salad for the evening. And so I've had that to benefit me in my life. And I think that part of my journey that's been affected is that I understand that it's about nurturing our mind and body and spirit from the inside out. It certainly has helped me on my personal journey to, well, integrate more holistic practices into my own life and learning how to slow things down. I've been a practitioner of yoga for many years, and I like to equate a lot of these things to my yoga asana practice. That while things might be uncomfortable, there's always a lesson there. And I think that under extraordinary conditions like we have these days, we really need to tune into that. So really, from hundreds of interviews and thousands of hours of research over the last 3 years, my fantastic team and I have really figured out a couple of things, but have found some commonalities for healing and finding balance among our contributors. I know that this has been touched on before, but number one, healing is very personal. And the trick is to find an avenue that resonates with you and that will allow you to tap into your own intuition. Health and well-being are predominantly inside jobs, meaning that the mental element, really how we perceive the process and our experiences is crucial. The healing process oftentimes begins with the acceptance of the circumstance and the emotions being experienced. I'd like to read a quote from a recent article, actually, from one of our longtime contributors, Liz Tuckwell, on emotions. The article is on our emotional vocabulary. Feelings aren't always black and white. There's an entire emotional vocabulary to be discovered by opening your heart and mind. Feelings have their own timeline. They are not logical, linear experiences. With only a limited range of words to describe our feelings, we can easily mislabel what we are feeling and use emotional definitions by someone else. If we only reflect through this narrow lens, we miss the spectrum of what we can truly receive and learn from our complex feelings, a deeper understanding of ourselves. And so it's really taking that and figuring out how to view trauma as educational experiences and hopefully fortifying in some way. letting go of negativity is another pillar. I love this, another quote from Stephanie Euskis, who was featured yesterday in our Fighter Friday post on Instagram. She writes, "You live your life to be happy, and you live your life so that one day when you do pass, people can remember the good things about you." And why I felt like this was so impactful and worthy of mentioning today is because this is coming from a woman who is diagnosed with aortic aneurysm and stage 3 breast cancer, all in the span of a week. And so how do we bring people from this place of trauma and get them to this place of sort of peace and understanding? So the question is, of course, how do we equip ourselves with a positive and self-nurturing mindset? How do we create a positive narrative out of perhaps places of darkness? And how can we leverage our passions and interests to distract us and put us in a better place, if only for a minute? I think it's about summoning that courage to do so, and figuring out how we can step out of that anxiety. I think figuring out and determining what is the community that you want to be a part of, and what community is going to help serve you. And so I think a supportive community is another thing that really benefits in the healing practice. We want to figure out how to eradicate some of these negative thought patterns and find our way into, and sometimes that support of the community can actually greatly assist in that. I think that we need to, again, look at this as a not just cancer, but really wellness for all. When I started the publication, I thought, well, this is a population that really desires to feel alive, worthy, and not other. And so this idea of separation, again, and I think most of us here can agree on this, is it's an illusion. It's false. And so that someone else has cancer and that perhaps you don't, it's somewhat immaterial to me. I think that both from the perspective of people who are touched by whether they're a supporter or a thriver or are going through their own cancer journey, that this is something that people can feel very different, and we are determined to find ways to bring us all together. And so I think it's understanding that we all go through trauma. For people who have cancer during or touched by cancer in any way during this particular time, I think it's almost a double whammy, right? And so that type of emotional intelligence that needs to kind of be culled out of people is extraordinarily important. I think finding and tapping into all of those small joys and choosing how you view things is of the utmost importance, especially when we have this amplified state of kind of panic these days. How can we really quell that? And again, it's back to understanding that it is an inside job, and that we really need to spend time figuring out how to tap into our own intuition that will lead us on that journey towards health and wellness. Let's see, I feel like one thing that we can all start with and understand is that we should, when we wake up in the morning, we should have wellness in mind at the top of our minds and work from that place. And that doesn't mean wellness simply for you, but it also means wellness for all. And so in the situation of cancer, the otherness and the isolation that is felt we need to figure out ways to dispel some of that, because everyone wants to feel happy. everyone wants to feel valued, and everyone also, I think, wants to have their own individual sense of oh, well, I think adventure, and and what brings the spice of life back to them. So whether they're things like travel, which certainly does it for me, or fashion, or nutrition, my job is to figure out how we can make those types of things accessible and felt, and so people who are touched by cancer don't feel like others, and feel like they have access to a lot of these resources that are frankly very helpful for all.